All right, good morning, everybody. Did we have any data today, or is that tomorrow? Let me see here. I think we had PPI data. We did, yeah. PPI data was 0.1 over 0.2. Retail sales at 0.3 as expected. Month over month for PPI was 0.3 as expected. Retail sales 0.2, a little bit low. And that is it. We have a little bit more data coming out at 10 o'clock. And then tomorrow we have a ton of data coming out. We'll keep an eye on that. Okay, looking at our trade plan from last night, do we need to update this? I would say no. We should be using this updated level here instead of the old level. So that would be a small change. Instead of 28, it is 32. So holding above yesterday's value high, that extends the upper tail of that P shape going back into 67.60. Then it would go back to prior value, back to 87 and 92. Holding below that value high, we are rotating back to yesterday's value low or Friday's value high. They're basically the same level. Keep an eye on that around 76. And then it gets bad. If it stays below 76, that is a trapped P shape of yesterday. Then we start pushing that lower tail. So back down to 36, which is around that POC. And then back down to 75, which is the full retrace of Friday. So as of right now, we are just rotating inside of yesterday. We'll see what it does when it hits those value levels. So no change in our trade plan except for that little update from 28 to 32. Just using the proper value level there. NASDAQ, same exact story. We have a micro pullback today. So we have that D-shape micro pullback inside of that P shape. So look for rotations until we have a value breakout. A breakout to the upside leads to an upper tail extension. A breakout to the downside leads to a trapped P shape. So trapped P shape failure, basically. Yesterday becomes a trapped P, and then you start pushing the lower tail, squeezing out the late buyers. So pretty standard for a day that closed as a P shape prior, then we have a micro pullback today. So on the trade plan, I put bullish neutral because it's bullish if you look at yesterday's P shape, but today is just a micro pullback, so you kind of are neutral so far. It's neutral so far, but it has a slight edge on the buy side. Like if it ended up going up, it would not surprise me, right? NVIDIA 5%. What is it, up 5%? I didn't see any headline on that. Oh no, it's down 5%. What was the headline on that? I didn't see. Is it the headline about like Facebook buying Google chips instead of NVIDIA? I saw that one. There was a decently bullish headline for like, I guess you would say tariffs or like trade relations. I saw a headline about the Chinese leader reached out to Trump, and it's the first time a Chinese leader has reached out to an American leader since 9/11. It wasn't like specifically 9/11. I think it was like early 2000s or something, like 2001, whatever. They're basically saying that they never reach out first. It's always the US reaching out. I guess that could be seen as semi-bullish for all the people that are very bearish about the China tariffs. Yeah, US always left on red, I guess. Keep an eye on this point of origin up here around 30. Right now we're just rotating, very standard micro pullback, a lot of rotations, a lot of chop in the beginning until it figures out which side, if there is a side, that has the bias. Unfortunately, YouTube's still doing that stupid username thing. Hopefully they change that. It only did it for like a day last time. It looked like they were like testing something out. Good morning, everybody. Want to backpack in future, JC. Here is the trade plan for you guys. Good morning, Ken, King, Igor, TS, Greg, Nitro. Good morning, Larry, Greg, Churchill, Ordinary, Tachi, Pot, Marcel, Ray, Boat, Estevan, Tamer, Roman. Keep it on yesterday's value high around that 28 to 32 area. Good morning, Adam. Red, Peter. Good morning, Nike, Ranger. Good morning, eBay. Good morning, Crypto. Titus, Olive. Good morning, AT. Good morning, Adriana, Orion. Good morning, user. Leo. By the way, everybody who won your giveaways yesterday for the Q&A, Addis said they should have your access, I think today they said, or tomorrow. I think they said today. So you should see access today if you won the 30 days Ultra license. And then if you won your Apex account, you should see that in your email. And then whoever won Discord, I just need to get you added to Discord. I sent you a friend request yesterday. And we should be all good on those giveaways. Appreciate those of you who stopped by. If you guys could not make it, it is in the playlist. I just haven't edited. I haven't cut it down yet. I still have to cut down the last like 2 videos for the Q&As. But yeah, that series is 100% over finally. Well, it's like 90% over. I need to finish editing the Q&As. But the 5 videos are finally out. So if you guys have been waiting for that series to be finished to start watching them, you guys can check it out. By the time you make it to the 5th video, I'll probably have those Q&As fully edited. Appreciate all the support on that series, by the way, guys. Had a lot of views. It did better than I expected, so I appreciate that. Little bit of a discrepancy here between ES and NASDAQ. NASDAQ below VWAP. Kind of a sideways neutral open. ES is well above VWAP. Pretty bullish open. Yeah, we'll probably start the short form content not this week because of the holiday. Possibly next week, depending on how busy I am. Maybe the week after. Might take a little break. And then we'll start doing the shorts and the recaps. Excuse me. Good morning, Roma, Michael, Lubomir, Jose, Carrie, Darius. Good morning, Chris, LDM, Music, Tom. Yeah, no problem, Adrian. Still pretty bullish on ES here, holding above that ADMA, holding above this upper node. This is about where we should be seeing a lot of sell pressure, around 28 to 32, 35, somewhere around there. Looks like NASDAQ is dragging us down here. Sell pressure from NQ, putting in sell pressure on ES, which is okay because, like I said, that is where you expected sellers to come in on ES anyway. So going back into rotation here. This is a micro pullback, so the open and possibly the entire day could be very choppy. More Lucio, Farage, Victor. Well, a failure to rotate would be the same day. So, like, if the same day did not go back to the value high after bouncing off the value low, that would be a failure to rotate. An incomplete auction is when it's the other day. So it's like testing a prior day. So we broke out a value, then we're retesting a prior day, and we did not finish that retrace. We started going back into the value, and then we tested like 50% of it or 60%, whatever. The number doesn't matter. It's just that we retested the value, and we did not finish it. Now, today does not count as an incomplete auction because it's an inside day, so that doesn't, they're not the same thing. Like I said, you have to be outside of value, retracing into value. We were not outside of value here, we're inside of value. So today would not count. Today is just an inside day. I believe I talk about that in the volume profile video. I also have a separate video on that concept because it's a little bit confusing, so it needs a bit more depth. And I believe it's called like how to trade incomplete auctions or failures to rotate or something like that. Okay, so this should be finishing our rotation here. So now we should expect some buy pressure, or we should have expected buy pressure a little bit higher. It's getting a bit bearish on NASDAQ. On ES, we should be expecting buy pressure here. Like I said, NASDAQ's a bit more bearish today. Victor, I don't know if your computer's bugging, but don't spam the same message. Yeah, I haven't checked Bitcoin recently. We can take a look. So it's almost entering that zone that I talked about the long-term investing, which let's just go ahead. We can update some of these levels. So that value got completely taken out. That value got taken out. That value got taken out. This was our first extended target on the high. That got hit, and that was pretty much the all-time high. We'll leave that there. Bullish VWAP is dead. Let's update it with the bearish VWAP. And it looks like we have a local bottom. We'll start a VWAP here. We'll see if it holds. That will be our bullish VWAP for now. Now for our long-term, like, dollar cost averaging zone, it would be starting at 40%, which is basically this bottom. That's about a 36% drop. So it'd start around 75,000. That'd be like the earliest. Down to 50%, that'd be about 62,000. 60% would be about 50,000. And then 80%, which you're probably not going to get, is 25,000. I don't think we're ever going to see, I don't want to say ever, but seeing an 80% drawdown from the all-time high like we used to is going to be extremely difficult because of how mainstream crypto is now. So your dollar cost averaging zone is anywhere from like 80,000, I'd say, down to 50,000 for the long-term invest, right? 50,000 would be 60%, 80,000 would be 40%. And that would be like the 3-year cycle trade or 2-year cycle, depending on how long it takes. So like I said, this is long-term. I'm not talking about any swing trades or scalps or day trades. I'm talking about buying Bitcoin and forgetting about it for like a year or two. Okay, looks like the bearish pressure from NASDAQ has pulled us out of balance on ES. We are losing that value low. So now we start to look for a possible retrace into the value low of yesterday, which is around 76 to 80. For day trading, I don't give levels on Bitcoin for day trading. I don't watch Bitcoin daily anymore. Want to joke? Weekly pivot forming on what? On ES or on Bitcoin? I don't see one on ES or NASDAQ, so you must mean Bitcoin. We are testing those weekly trails, by the way. We talked about how we lost pretty much every single support on the daily on ES and NASDAQ. The only macro level that we have left as support locally is that weekly trail, and they are being tested pretty much right now on the higher time frames. Or they were tested yesterday, I should say. Around 510, 6,510 on ES, and around 24,000 on NASDAQ. So far, they are acting as the support. We'll see if that holds. If you just type in volume profile on my channel, there's numerous videos talking about stuff like that. I just put out a very long video. It's like 2 hours long almost. Delta nuking here. People are definitely being stopped out, and this is the problem when you have a P shape on the prior day and it's not being protected. It turns into a bit of a trap. Yeah, I prefer to trade futures over Bitcoin on a day trading sense for sure. That's why I switched over the last couple of years. Well, I say couple, it was probably, I don't even know, what, 4 or 5 years now. There's not like one headline that came out. The data came out this morning, wasn't the greatest, and Nvidia is having a bad day. And Nvidia is kind of the driving force of this like AI bubble. So whenever Nvidia has a bad day, then obviously the market has a bad day. Yeah, DBT is a shorter version of my name. Yep. Hey, Leo, good luck, man. Just remember to probably trade it a bit more aggressively than you normally would because you only have 30 days, and then it will start charging you full price on that Apex giveaway. So be a bit more aggressive. See if you can pass it within that 30 days. If you can't, then you want to cancel it and go back to the brew code. So right now we're seeing pretty much a standard trapped P, where you have a P shape that did not have the upper tail extension. So all of these buyers that were stuck are now getting squeezed out. And we can see that squeeze because look at the delta. The delta is exploding to the downside. I think gold kind of topped out locally, didn't it? It finally had that pullback that we were looking for. A little bit of a tweezer top on the weekly. You're just distributing right now, so until it starts holding above like 4,200 or below like 4,000 to 3,900, you're just in a very long range. And the problem with metals is they can distribute and accumulate for a very long time. Gold was in an accumulation, or sorry, a distribution for like, what, 5 years? And that's why we had such a major breakout. People were waiting on this move for, I'm not even exaggerating, like it was like 4 or 5 years. From 2020 to 2025. Kind of like 2024 is when it kind of started. So about 4 years of distribution. So I don't pay too much attention to gold when it's ranging, because it can go on forever. Yeah, the volatility is really high. The 250K accounts probably feel like 50Ks right now. The 50Ks probably feel pretty dangerous for most people. What playlist to start with? Start with my new one. That was kind of the purpose of the new series, that was the introduction playlist to the channel. The Becoming an Apex Trader series. It's kind of a crash course on all the content that I've taught over the last 7 or 8 years. No, there's no direct headline for this unless you're looking at NVIDIA. NVIDIA is going down, which is causing the tech stocks to come down. Watch VWAP here, bear flag into VWAP. Now, this is a bad variation of the bear flag into VWAP because it is so aggressive. Look at these block trades. Somebody is unloading here. And they're all about the same size, so it's most likely the same person. I usually say 30-minute for the rotations, but obviously right now the volatility is very high, so you could go down to like a 15 or 5. It's really up to you. But most volume profile techniques are 30 minutes. Okay, here is the session VWAP on ES. We're very far from that VWAP on NQ. Everything lines up perfectly for a bear flag and a VWAP here, except for how aggressive this is hitting VWAP. You typically do not want it to hit VWAP by going vertical into it. It's not exactly a flag, right? It's more of a V shape. Notice where we are bouncing. This is why I mark out all these levels, right? We are bouncing off the value high and the value low, basically the same level. Value low of yesterday, value high of Friday. Damn near to the tick on that value high of Friday. So we have finished the rotation of this P shape. We've trapped out all the squeezed out all the late buyers. We saw that squeeze with that massive spike in Delta. Now, normally they get squeezed. Normally they get squeezed when you start losing that value low, but the value low was a little bit too low here. It probably should have been somewhere around here. They got squeezed a little bit early. Okay, no reaction so far to the session VWAP. Let's see if NASDAQ has a reaction. That level is 832. Just a reminder for this week, tomorrow we have an insane amount of data coming out, so be careful around the open. I will be streaming as normal tomorrow. Thursday is a holiday, so I will not be streaming. Friday is a half day. I will also not be streaming. I recommend you don't trade on Thursday or Friday. Friday is tradable, but I don't recommend it. So it will be a long weekend, then we'll be back on Monday. Okay, so far NASDAQ is leading today, so let's see if it reacts to VWAP here. Damn near finishing the rotation already on ES. It's only been, what, 10 minutes from that bottom? Pretty crazy bounce. All right, closing our A session with, what, 60 points? Yeah, just about. A little over 50 points on that A session, which is kind of crazy. Like I said, trading 50K accounts right now, or like the lower prop firm accounts, it probably feels pretty rough. So be careful. Our volatility is very, very high. The 250Ks probably feel like the small accounts right now. Yeah, we do have 10 o'clock data coming out. Home sales 1.9 over 0.5, so better than expectations. Manufacturing index negative 15, lower than expectations. That number is so random, the Richmond number. That number is never anywhere near expectations. Two MNQs, yeah, most people will probably get away with one. One small contract right now is probably good for vast majority of traders. Volatility is absolutely insane. Okay, so like I said, NASDAQ is leading. Look at that reaction on VWAP. Failing VWAP almost to the exact tick. And right when it started failing VWAP, look at what happened to ES. Now here is the problem with a V-shape, right? When it V-shapes into VWAP, the likelihood that it puts in a higher low and breaks that VWAP trade is a lot higher than if it was a standard like bear flag in a VWAP. So you need to keep an eye on it. If you shorted that, it's okay. You just have to keep a close eye on it and watch out for that possible higher low that will kill that trade, right? If it starts putting in a higher low, it's going to bounce back into VWAP. Now, so far, you literally top ticked it if you sold VWAP. More block trades coming in. Seems like it's the same person, the same entity, because they're all about the same size. This is not looking good if we close very red today. Because we had a decent bounce off of our weekly macro support, kind of the only support that we have right now. And if that bounce is immediately trapped, we're starting to get into that like sell-only market on every single time frame. The weekly, the daily, everything less than the daily, right? Lower than the daily. Okay, so far you have that one smooth motion back to your prior low. Here is your prior low target. That is quite possibly one of the easiest bear flag and VWAP trades we've probably ever seen. The only thing that was not easy about it was, like I said, you typically do not like a V shape into VWAP. That was a very aggressive move into VWAP. But that reaction to VWAP, instantly selling and then instantly going back down to your prior low, it doesn't get much cleaner than that. We constantly talk about that one smooth motion. That's what I mean right there. There's not even a single green candle on the 1 minute. And that looks like a small move. That is not a small move. That is nearly 200 points on NQ. That is nearly 30 points on ES. This screenshot right here is a great example of why you need to understand when one side is leading, right? Like NASDAQ was clearly leading today. They started selling off, then ES started selling off. So when one side is very obviously leading, you need to see when that side hits its important levels, VWAP, value high, value low, whatever, right? Because you want to see if it reacts. So NASDAQ hit VWAP, then you saw the reaction on ES. But ES acted like VWAP wasn't even there because it didn't care. It was being driven by NASDAQ. Oh yeah, 25K accounts right now would be basically untradeable. Which is why I typically recommend the 50K as the lowest. Right now, if you like were just now signing up for Apex or any other prop firm, the 50K accounts are probably even too small. If you have 50Ks already, just be careful. But if I was signing up for new accounts, the 50K is probably too small right now. The volatility is just insane. If you're on the 50Ks, you're probably trading, like I said, like 1 micro, maybe 2. To feel even slightly comfortable, you'd probably want to be 250K, 300K, like the high accounts right now. Now, hopefully after the holiday, the volatility comes back down, but we'll see. Yesterday kind of teased us a little bit. It gave us really good liquidity. And now we're back to having decently low liquidity. And right there is why I teach you guys that when I say the prior low, when you're targeting a prior low or a prior high, you are not targeting the absolute level. It is about the cluster of candles that created that higher low. And that is a prime example of why, right there on NASDAQ. You started hitting that prior low. You were inside of it by about 50 points, and then you bounced. You missed the actual low by another 50 points. Yeah, the activation fees are very cheap right now, I believe, on I think it's like all accounts. I don't know if they extended the sale. It was going until Monday. Oh, they just sent a new email. Yeah, so they did extend the sale. December 2nd. The 100K accounts are $10 activation fees. Perks of joining Apex? Well, just look at the chart right now. Would you want to trade this with your own money? If you're new to trading, I would not recommend touching this market with your own money. Yeah, don't check the box that says you won't use a code. Yeah, exactly. Good morning, Mauser. Yeah, the new promotion is for the 100K accounts. If you pass the account, it's only a $10 activation fee. That's their like Black Friday deal. It goes until December 3rd, I think. Starting to accumulate around VWAP, which is good. You want to see that. Typically, when you accumulate around VWAP, it lowers the volatility. We are failing to rotate. It wanted to go back to 32. It's not going back to 32 right now. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Sam. Look at the block trades on NASDAQ. You can almost not even see the candles. There's so many block trades. Somebody is either building or unloading a massive position today. Morning, Abel. This is a great example of what I talk about with block trades, where you don't want to like 100% follow them. You want to see who is controlling them, right? So we had so many bearish blocks right here, but they're not really getting lower prices. They're kind of being protected bullishly. Now it's still bearish because we're failing to rotate, but if you just blindly press the sell button because of those block trades, unless you got out immediately, you basically sold the bottom. So not a very good sell there. Could be a very weird bulldog, but I would not treat this like a bulldog. It looks like one, but I wouldn't trade it like one. Let's take a look at our single print chart, because it's probably very weird now. So we had single prints on Friday. They have not been filled in. We had single prints yesterday. They have been filled in by today. We had single prints on Thursday. The bottom half got filled in. The upper portion got slightly filled in. We still have some left open. And then we have even more single prints above going back to Thursday the 13th. And I believe that's it for the local prices. There's probably some far away, but locally that's it. So we have been forming single prints every day for the last 3 days. So it's not saying a whole lot, but the last 3 trading days have left open single prints, which is not a good sign. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so 10. We've only had 2 days in the last almost 10 trading days that have not formed single prints on their close. No, Journey, you're watching a Apex account right now. This is just Apex data. I'm not using any fancy data. I'm not paying for extra data. I'm not paying for level 2. This is quite literally the direct data they give you. It's a rhythmic account. So I'm using a rhythmic Apex account. Yeah, as far as Addis goes, the platform, I have like the highest tier because they give me an affiliate account. So they give me like the highest tier, which I think is like ultra or whatever. There's two plans on Addis. One that delays your data by like 10 or 15 minutes, but it gives you access to everything that I'm looking at right now. And then there's one just above that that has the same access, but it's not delayed. So if you're just back testing and like strategy testing, you can get the delayed one, save some money. But if you want to live trade, then obviously you need the live one. But yeah, be careful when you're reading their plans. Some of the lower ones are delayed. Yeah, Rhythmic is just one of their connections. They've got a whole list of connections you can tie into. And Apex Rhythmic is one of them. Just go watch my, what is it called? I think it's called like Apex Startup Guide or something like that. I walk through, and that was, or it's Addis Startup Guide, I believe. That was on the older version of Addis where it didn't have different plans, but it should be the same. The only difference is you'll need like a certain license. But how to connect Apex is the same. Like I said, this is good. We want to see this. We want to see it chopping around VWAP. That typically is better. It lowers the volatility. It sometimes raises the liquidity, which we're not really raising liquidity too much here. Yeah, it's whatever plan lets you connect to real-time data. It's one of the higher tier plans. It's either the Ultra or the one below Ultra. They have that long list that compares the different plans and what they give you. Just read through that list and pick which one is best for you. Hey, Saul, I appreciate the donation, man. I appreciate the $20. I'm glad you enjoy the content, man. Sorry I don't have any like stream alerts or anything for the donations. But I appreciate the support, man. The best approach for days like this, just stick to the extremes, right? Don't get chopped out in the middle. Which is basically what I say for every day. But especially on very high volatility days. You want to stick to the extremes, trading around the value high, value low, low a day, high a day. The only exception to that is VWAP, right? VWAP is most of the time kind of towards the middle. VWAP is always an exception because it's such a good level to trade, obviously. I mean, look at today. It gave you the I don't know if I'd say easiest, but it gave you the best trade of the day. There wasn't really anything easy about selling when it was going vertical. Still following the micro pullback mentality, but it is obviously slightly bearish at this point. A micro pullback is basically you're building up this D shape on top of the POC of yesterday. So we had an impulse, and now we're just building up that same value. They did squeeze out a lot of these late buyers on today, all the highs of today and yesterday. But they're not seeing any follow through. They're bouncing off prior value, which is slightly bullish, right? We had all this prior value acting as support. So still seeing that micro pullback D-shaped chop. This one's just a very wide micro pullback. They're typically a lot, the range is typically a lot smaller. Notice how the tape has gotten very blue. A lot of level 2 orders after that initial sell-off. They grabbed and took out most of the liquidity today. Well, that's the thing about volatility. When it spikes, people don't always expect it, right? That's why it causes such a spike. Unfortunately, that is trading. That's never going to go away. This is exactly what you want to see after a nasty spike in volatility like that. You want to see it find a value level and just kind of hang out there. And yeah, that's kind of the other side of volatility, right? Volatility is not always a bad thing. Like days like this, you can make as much money as you can lose, right? It's just really based on how you handle it. Now, personally, I don't like trading super high volatility. It's definitely it's not great for a lot of my patterns. But yeah, that is the other side. It's not always a loss, right? Likely we stay inside initial balance the rest of the day. I would say if we had normal liquidity, the answer would be yes. But we have not stayed inside of initial balance in quite a while. When's the last time we stayed inside of an initial balance? I mean, I can't even find one. Almost here. Almost Monday the 3rd of November, but not even. So no, it's not likely. We've had one time that was barely even one time in 30 days. Now, in a normal market, where our liquidity is very high and the initial spike in volatility was just that, it was just a spike, then yes, you could say the likelihood of staying inside of an extremely wide A session is probably pretty high. But unfortunately, that is not the case recently. You put in a very wide initial balance, then you extend it by typically 100%. Yeah, the calm trades have been the pre-market recently. You're not lying. The pre-market has been pretty stable for the most part, which is hilarious because it's normally much lower liquidity, but you can't get much lower than 10 to 20 contracts a tick where we are right now. Okay, right now we are seeing a bit of a problem for these sellers. Like I talked about earlier, we had all these block trades come in, but they have absolutely no continuation. So they would be seen as bearish because of all that delta, but they're kind of just grabbing liquidity and stopping out the late buyers. They're not actually continuing that downward. Now we're back into the bullish absorption that we had earlier today. We'll see if we can stay above that 30 level. This is basically completing the rotation of the micro pullback. So all of this action, even though it's been insanely wide, it is still a D-shaped micro pullback. It is still inside of yesterday. There is no like direct bias from what we've seen today. We have to hold above 32 or below 76 as the trade plan talked about this morning. So right now we just have a very wide micro pullback. Now typically micro pullbacks are not this volatile because they are typically like a 10, 20 point range. Now this one is a 50 point range. Yeah, stops have to be pretty wide right now. Yep. And that's what I was talking about with like the 50K, 25K prop accounts. They're like almost untradeable because the amount that you have to put on your stop, even on like one contract, is pretty wide. So just be careful if you guys are on those lower accounts, especially if they're paid accounts, right? If you're trading the size that you normally trade on the 50K, if you're trading that same size on like a 100, a 250, a 300, you probably feel a lot better. Am I a fan of micros? Yeah, like I was saying earlier, you basically could trade one micro right now and you'd be fine. Money is relative, right? That's why we don't talk about size on the channel, because it makes literally no sense to talk about. But for the vast majority of people, you probably could trade one micro right now and be perfectly fine. Usually when I talk about size, I am talking about for like prop firm accounts, right? Like size for a 50K, size for a 250, because that puts us all on the same playing field. But size when it comes to like your personal account, it's completely irrelevant because everybody's different. One big contract for me might be really big for other people, might be nothing for other people. Some people probably trade 5 big contracts, right? They're like, why the hell would I trade one? That's nothing. And then same thing for like micros, right? Some people might trade 1, some people might trade 20. Yeah, exactly. The the prop firm accounts, when I say 50K, 250K, whatever, that's not like the actual size of the account. That's not how much money you are trading. That's just how they differentiate the accounts so you know the profit targets, the drawdown rules, etc. It's basically just how they name the accounts. It's not like you're actually trading that much money. Sorry guys, my throat is shot. Thankfully we have a long weekend coming up. Yeah, for the most part, just think of this the size of the account as like the name of the account. The actual size of your account is how much you can risk, how much your drawdown is. So, for example, the 50K account is basically a $2,500 account. And then I don't remember the other ones off the top of my head. It goes up to like 5,000, 6,000. It's the same way you treat like a personal account, right? It's like I talk about with futures accounts. You don't build them up like stock accounts. It's not like a never-ending portfolio that you constantly build up. So you think about your personal account the same way, where you're like, okay, if I start losing X amount of money, I need to take a break, or I need to calm down and figure out what's going on. It's almost like you're losing the account, right? You're not going to blow the entire account up. Well, hopefully. You just have money in the account as acting as a buffer, not only for drawdown, but for margin if you're trying to hold overnight or something. Nobody's going to just keep building up a futures account. It makes no sense. You're just wasting money. Yeah, it is a little hard sometimes, like when you're breaking a value high, but then the value high shifts up, so now you're technically below it. If you're taking a trade based on that, like a sweep of a value high or a retest or whatever, just use whatever that level was at the time. So if it starts shifting up, that's, if you're shorting, that's a problem. But as long as they're not invalidating your trade, like trading, building a massive node above that, then you're okay, right? Just use the prior value level that you based your trade off of. Which is why I like to look at the value levels on a 30-minute chart, because they're not going to move around as much. They should be exactly the same on the lower time frames, but a lot of the times the platforms are calculating them a little bit differently. So on the lower time frames, they do move around a bit more. But yeah, I would always just use the level that you were basing your trade off to begin with. The value levels should not be moving around that fast. If they're moving around a whole lot, you might want to check your settings. Um, or there's like a massive amount of volume coming in. But most of the time, they're not moving around too much. Yeah, I watched the imbalances. They're just over here. There's not a whole lot of imbalances today that have not been filled in. So you can't really see them. But I watched the imbalances on a different chart. I talked about it very briefly in my order flow video, not a whole lot, because I don't use it a whole lot. Well, you can't say it's absorption because it's in the middle of the range, right? So if absorption happens, it's almost always on the high of a candle, low of a candle, high of day, low of day, whatever. Because if it's in the middle, one side is getting what they want. So the likelihood of it being absorbed is lower. Now it could be an absorption on like a lower time frame. So if you go to like, say, if I go to maybe a 5-minute here, you could have an absorption on possibly a lower time frame when you start to like pull back into VWAP. Then you might have an absorption on like a 5-minute candle or something like that. And then it pushes away from it. But typically on like a 30-minute, it can't be like in the middle of the candle because they're kind of getting what they want one way or the other. But yes, you could break it down to like a lower time frame. There are no settings. I'm just manually drawing those. Those are just hand drawn. Now we're starting to shift almost identical to yesterday, where you started building up a ton of volume and value on the high. You did not finish that upper tail. So now, funny enough, this upper tail extension of today is the same exact thing as an upper tail extension of yesterday, which lines up perfectly with the single prints into 60, which is why that's our target. Hey, Evie, I appreciate it, man. Now we're pretty much seeing the same problem that we saw on the downside, just in reverse, right? So we had all those trapped buyers on that upper portion of the P shape, and then we had all this delta exploding to the downside. But once again, like we said earlier, there's no continuation here. All these block trades came in, no continuation. So they could see that same explosion to the upside here. Keep an eye on that delta. Now they are picking a bit of a weird time to push. They might create single prints back to 31. Pretty much every single day in the last 10 days has created single prints, and most of them have left them open as well. Or at least left one portion of them open. Okay, turning into a sweep now. We're turning back to that micro pullback rotation. Keep it on VWAP. If it wants to fail to rotate, it should slice through VWAP if it is rotating. Back down to, let's see here, 702. They are repairing this 30-minute tail. We do not have single prints as long as they stay below 31, which is obviously creating that sweep that we talked about. This is just a standard rotation until it hits VWAP. Then it might turn into a failed rotation. We'll keep an eye on that. Right now, it is a failure to rotate. You can see on NASDAQ, you're bouncing off VWAP. It is front running it a little bit on ES. If they hold back above 30 here, that's holding outside of that balance. Look at the time, too. If they push here, it will create a couple of single prints. No single prints, by the way. These are always the hardest rotations where you fail to rotate, which should lead to a break of balance, but then it doesn't. So it's like you're rotating not from the value high to the value low. You start rotating from one side of the value area to like VWAP or the POC. It's like a half a rotation, right? So you're not getting the break of balance, but you're also not getting the full rotation. Yeah, it looks like you have that like half rotation that I was talking about, where you're not breaking balance, but it's also not allowing it to rotate. This happens when the POC and VWAP are slightly imbalanced. They're either really close to the value high or really close to the value low. Today, it's obviously the value high. Addis is better. You see it almost immediately. That was why I switched over so quickly. Is when I first tried Addis, the refresh rate and the latency, the tick speed, it's just obviously better. It's not going to make like a so much of a difference that it's going to make or break you as a trader. But as someone that has thousands of hours watching this, like these charts, I mean, just everything on my screen. The second you compare it together, you can see it's faster on Addis. Now, if you only have like a few hours, if you're new looking at these platforms, if you're new to trading, you're not going to see it. It's not that much of a difference. Addis is the fastest I've ever seen. Because before Addis, it was NT is very fast. Like I said, it's not going to make or break you. Addis just has that slight edge. It's just slightly better. It could also be data related. I don't know if it's 100% Addis. But I think I tried that though. I think I compared my Apex data on both and it was still faster. So I don't know if it's data related. But yeah, short answer is yes, it's faster. Yeah, yesterday, if you want a giveaway for Addis, Apex, Discord, you all should see access except for the Discord person. I need to add them after stream. I was waiting on them to accept my friend request. But other than that, you should be good. Addis said they're adding your accounts today. I don't know if they've already done it or not. Coding on Addis, I'm not sure. I've never tried. Hey, AJ, have a good day. You're still technically in a lower rotation here. You're just not allowing it to finish the lower rotation. If it can stay below VWAP here, keep an eye down to like 700 or 705, somewhere around there. Hey, Luck, welcome to the channel, man. Yeah, I'm here every day. I'm here Monday through Friday, so basically every trading day. Now, this week's obviously an exception. I won't be here Thursday and Friday because of the holiday. Check the website again. You misspelled the code. There are two codes on the website. If you scroll down a little bit on the home page, there's one that works on everything. That's the Black Friday code. And there's one that only works on the Discord annual plan. And that's the annual code. Yeah, they're on the website homepage. You can just copy and paste them from there. you're still seeing that that failure to rotate. They're not allowing it to go below VWAP. You have that half rotation. You're hitting the value high, hitting VWAP, hitting value high, hitting VWAP. Well, to be exact, you're not hitting VWAP. It's front running it a little bit. You're hitting the POC. You are hitting it on NASDAQ, but NASDAQ is a bit choppier. still struggling to see that actual break of balance, to see that upper tail extension. Are the bulls trying to flip the market? Well, they're not really flipping it. They're kind of in control. They were in control yesterday as well. They just lost control a little bit at like the open, 9:40, 10 o'clock. But since 10 o'clock, they've been pretty much in full control. You can see this cluster of bearish delta on the bottom. Didn't go anywhere. They didn't get any value. 30-minute low protected, low protected, low protected. High taken out. And now we're waiting on the high to be taken out here, which it failed by 1 point. Yeah, I think that was just a squeeze, right? It wasn't a lot of sellers opening new positions looking for lower value. It was mostly them just taking out all that delta from the prior high, from yesterday's high. If I had to guess, right? I don't actually care. Like I said, I don't care about opening or closing, stuff like that. But if I had to guess why there was no continuation there, that's probably why. It was probably just squeezing out the buyers. I don't think something that small would matter, Mauser. I'm not worried about that small of a detail. They're both just sweeps in my eyes. No single prints so far today. Starting to see that bullish imbalance of yesterday kind of pushing us up a little bit. They're protecting the 30-minute lows. We technically have not lost a 30-minute low today because the only candle that had a big move down was the opening candle. So every candle after that, 30-minute lows have been protected. Keep an eye on the highs, though. We're starting to stall out and not break the highs. We do want to see more value building up above 40 here. That does go into the single prints from Thursday back into 60. That lines up with not only a tail extension of today, but also a tail extension of yesterday. So a lot of magnets kind of pulling us up here. The only problem with that is it's a micro pullback, right? The D-shaped micro pullbacks, they are very good at keeping price on that POC, on that VWAP, and just kind of chopping around it for damn near the entire day, right? So we still have that micro pullback here. It's just a very wide one. They're typically not this wide. They're typically like 20 points maybe. This one's extremely wide. So be careful there. But all right, guys, I will be calling it there. I'm going to stream the rest of the day in Discord. If you're not in Discord, I will see you guys tomorrow. I will not be streaming Thursday or Friday, so tomorrow will basically be our Friday. Tomorrow will be our end of the week, end of the month. If you guys want to support the channel, hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. If you guys have not already, be sure to check out the Becoming an Apex Trader series. We did finish that series this week. That series is entirely done, except for just editing the Q&A videos. That's the only thing that's left to do. Everything else is available for you guys to check out. If you guys want to support, you can also use our code on Apex. Code is BREW, B-R-E-W. Right now it's 80% off with some other benefits as well. The 100K accounts have a $10 activation fee. If you guys are signing up for brand new accounts, I would not recommend right now signing up for 25Ks or 50Ks. The volatility is extremely high. If you guys already have 50Ks, that's okay. Just be very careful. But I wouldn't sign up for new 50Ks. If you're signing up, I would sign up for the larger accounts. The volatility is just ridiculously high right now for trading those lower accounts. So just be careful, guys. And if you are trading the higher accounts, I would trade them as if you were trading a 50K account. So my sizing guide that I put out on a 50K account, that's probably how you want to trade the big accounts right now. Once again, because the volatility is so high. So you want to lower your size a little bit. Hopefully after the holiday, the volatility goes back down. We'll see what happens. But all right, guys, I'll see you in Discord. If you're not there, I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace, everybody.